Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Microsoft Azure Community User Group. Hi Kevin, we're back for another episode.
Hey Nick, hey folks, thanks for joining. We've got some more awesome speakers to show you tonight. So over to you, Nick.
So today's theme will be AI readiness and defendable cloud. So before we get started, we'll do some background housekeeping. A minute. There we go.
Yep. You might want to share your slides.
Okay. You can see, right? Yeah, cool. So as always, meet the team.
Sorry, Nick, you're sharing the other screen. You're sharing. You need to share your slides.
Can you see now?
I can see your StreamYard Studio. I think we've got a lot of gremlins in the technical issues tonight. Okay, that looks better.
Yep, as always, meet the team. I'm Nicholas, and I'm MVP. I'm a senior platform engineer working for Kenos.
And I'm Kevin Green, and I'm an Azure MVP, and I work for Ergo.
So all members of this group should abide by this code of conduct, be friendly and welcome to everyone, be patient, be thoughtful, be respectful and inclusive, and always try to be open and curious, try to ask questions, understand something, and not criticize another. Want to do this one?
Yeah, I'll do this one. So our agenda, as I said, we've got two awesome speakers tonight. So we have Kiran Kumar Ramana, who's a senior staff machine learning engineer at ServiceNow. Kiran's session is called AI Readiness Blueprint: From Azure AI Pilots to Scalable Enterprise Impact. We also have Hassan Fadili, who's a cloud DevOps ninja and also an MVP in the Visual Studio Tools and Developer Technologies. And Hassan's session is titled Defender for Cloud and Defender for DevOps Vulnerability Detection in Code as Part of DevOps Journey. So two really great sessions to look forward to tonight, folks. I think we're going to actually flip the schedule, Nick, and start with Hassan because Kiran was having a couple of technical issues. So Hassan's going to start.
Sure.
And then we'll come back to Kiran then.
Yes, sure. Hi, Hassan.
I'm sharing my screen already, right?
Yeah, let me just bring it on stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are pointing from. First of all, thanks so much, Nicholas. Thanks so much, Kevin, for getting me here today. It's always a pleasure to help communities wherever they are. It's always a pleasure. We have seen each other already before, and we meet before in MVP summits and such. Always fun. Why not sharing some kind of stuff what you are working daily on with other communities as well? So today's topic is on DevSecOps in general, which means security for your DevOps projects, but by usage of Microsoft ecosystem in this case. Microsoft ecosystem, when I say that, I'm talking about Azure DevOps, I'm talking about GitHub itself, I'm talking about Azure Cloud, which means just something where we will visualize all the vulnerabilities and everything on the Defender for Cloud as part of Azure Cloud Service. So before that, my name is Hassan Fadili, MVP Visual Studio Tools and Technologies, DevOps and GitHub, of course. Actually, we are all into the generative AI, I can say, where you can put from GitHub Copilot and all the goodness on there with all the agents and models and the modes and everything, which makes us already, just inspiring and absolutely very good. I'm leading two communities, one community in the Netherlands, which is .NET community, and I'm leading Morocco, Microsoft community in Morocco, just for sharing. The goal is sharing with our peers, students, and professionals so that we can share as much as we can and raise awareness and full adoption, of course, of Microsoft ecosystems. So that's about my personality. Nice. Today it's not about me, it's about the topic itself. So before I go to the topic directly, DevSecOps, I don't know how the audience already know as with DevOps concept. I will try first to give a small definition on DevOps when it comes to Microsoft definition here. So from that perspective, this is a definition of DevOps. When it comes to DevOps or in Microsoft world, this is the definition which is given by Donovan Brown, which was the DevOps guy at Microsoft, when he says DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to end users. This is in general a general definition from Microsoft point of view. But looking at this, we have some order there. People, process, and products means everything we do that for people. We as people, as a human beings, have to agree first on something to do. Once we have done, then we have to agree on some kind of process which we'd like to use to do that. And once we did, then we have to choose a product or a tool set which can enable us to do that one. Exactly the same for DevOps here. And that's why we see develop, operate, and deliver. And today I will elaborate a bit more on deliver parts. Okay. This is just from Microsoft perspective when it comes to DevOps definition. That side, then talking about that, we have two ecosystems on Microsoft world, or two DevOps ecosystems. The first is Azure DevOps. That's what we see right now. Azure DevOps consists of different features which are on there. We have Azure Boards, which is specifically for the project management and portfolio management. Repos, of course, for storing our code and our scripts and everything. And we have the Azure pipelines when it comes to CI/CD or continuous integration and continuous deployment. And of course, we have Azure Artifacts. Supposing you are working on a web system, and of course, to guarantee the compatibility of your system, you have to get some artifacts on there in order to get everything worked as well. Then, last but not least, which is Azure Test Plans. Nowadays, in the DevOps world, a tester is not a discipline which is coming later. Absolutely not. Nowadays, within the DevOps team, a tester is just making part of the team from the start. Once the specifications are just being discussed or visualized or detailed, the tester must be there as well in order to distillate what we call test cases or test scenarios from these specifications, because that will be tested as well as part of the development which has been done. Okay, so this is when it comes to the Azure DevOps as a DevOps platform or DevOps ecosystem from Microsoft. That's one. Then the another one is GitHub itself. We know all that before 18th of November 2018, GitHub was just an open source repository, right? That we know all. And we made use of it, and we still make use of it in other contexts. But this is how it was known before. But from the date, Microsoft has acquired GitHub, and it is becoming a full DevOps platform. Right? Which means we can just run our projects from A to Z or from idea to production using GitHub ecosystem. Right? That said, we see here we see some EDS like Visual Studio Code or like IntelliJ for Java development, for instance. Then we have connection with our repo here, GitHub packages, GitHub repos, and then the board. Of course, we have some integration as well between Azure DevOps and between GitHub itself. We can have the usage of Azure repos or Azure boards from Azure DevOps while the code is situated on GitHub repo, or we can just have the GitHub repo which contains our code, and then we can of course go with our code. So from that perspective, while we are pushing our code from the GitHub repo based on the operations we can make on a repository level, we can of course build that code using GitHub Actions, which is the equivalent of the Azure pipelines in this case, just to this kind of workflows which contain my continuous integration and continuous deployment, like you see here in the picture. But on continuous integration level, this is where I make build of my projects. This is where I have my tests. In this case, I'm talking about unit tests, which are integrated in my CI. This is where also I have to do some security stuff by different tools. Sonar Cloud is one. We have GitHub Security, which I would like to talk in details today. And those are the security tools which can be integrated with your CI when it comes to the continuous integration. Then on the continuous deployment, of course, we have a bunch of extension or tasks which can be used in order to deploy your release or your artifact which is coming from CI into the desired stage. When I'm talking about stage here, I'm talking about development, test, acceptance, and production. Knowing that in a DevOps mindset, we talk about the same artifact which is coming from CI. The same artifact is going through different cycles, through different stages with different validations. We are not making a stage for every artifact. No, absolutely not. On different stages, this is where we do different validations for the same artifact until it reaches the production. This is how we are doing that. And then, of course, once it is done, it can be deployed. Once it is deployed to production at the end, of course, with approvals and such, then it will be available for the customers or end users to be used. That is in general when it comes to DevOps mindset, using Azure DevOps and using GitHub itself. And of course, as I said already, these two platforms can also be integrated the one with each other. The question we often get is, hey guys, we are now in an era of 2026, but I'm now using Azure DevOps, but I would like to use GitHub. What can you advise? In that sense, if you are a company or an enterprise which is already investing in Azure DevOps service in this case, then you can still make use of that one, and you can partially make use of GitHub if you want. If you are curious or you are encouraged to use the GitHub features, like for instance GitHub repo and advanced security and everything, then I will say, okay, and you are already invested in Azure DevOps, keep your planning or your backlog on the Azure boards while your code is on GitHub repo. And of course, you can make use of GitHub Actions or also integrate with Azure pipelines. This is when you would like to combine the two. You can also go for the one or maybe for the other. If you're already making use of Azure DevOps. But of course, if you have nothing, and now, as we speak, you would like to join or to jump into DevOps usage, then I will say, please go GitHub, and then you will absolutely benefit of all the features on there, right? This is, I hope this makes sense, and this is how we advise this to the enterprise as well nowadays. So that said, then today I will take you with me in this challenge of GitHub Advanced Security. Talking about GitHub Advanced Security, this is a service on GitHub offer. This is a service included in the GitHub offer, as you know. And this GitHub Advanced Security has some features on it as well. Like you see, we have code scanning for searching potential security vulnerabilities of your code. We have code QL CLI, which runs code QL process locally on software projects or to generate code scanning results. And we have the secret scanning. The secret scanning just to detect the secrets of your code before it gets into the production. For example, keys and tokens and path tokens, keys, passwords, all the secrets can be stored or can be scanned in that sense. And we have dependency review, which gives you the impact of the changes to dependencies which you may have on your project, right? I hope this makes sense. Then the features as well of the GitHub Defender for Cloud, because here, yes, GitHub Advanced Security, those are the features, but we have, this is on the GitHub itself. Then we have the features of GitHub Defender for Cloud. GitHub Defender for Cloud, as I said, is in service on the cloud level, right? But it is integrated with what we call DevOps security. I will show that in a demo, then it will make more sense, okay? That one is, when we say Defender for Cloud, it integrates with GitHub Advanced Security to enhance your overall security posture. It has key features, unified security posture, for instance, and then Defender for DevOps or DevOps security, as it's called nowadays. Nowadays, it is calling DevOps security. So that this is the first one. And then the second one, it has also an automated workflow. And this automated workflow is just integration with GitHub Advanced Security that allows automation workflows to help you then detect, prevent, and remediate the vulnerabilities. This is absolutely a very, very nice view, what you can see at the end. Okay, and then we have some enhanced collaboration here with the integration. It integrates fast and strong collaboration between security operations, SecOps as we call, and developer teams. This is where the developer teams can take the benefits of the security in order to secure their code before it reaches the production. We know all, as something comes back from production, this is absolutely very, very expensive, because fixing that means you have to go through the whole cycle of DevOps in order to get that feature or that bug fixed until production. Okay, so this is in general talking about GitHub Advanced Security, which I said it is a service on GitHub level, which can be consumed on repositories on GitHub itself, or maybe on Azure DevOps repos, and it exposes the results or vulnerabilities on Defender for Cloud as a service on cloud, on Azure Cloud itself. This is how you can see this in integrated with each other. Then, that said, I would like to elaborate a bit more on the code. I hope you still see my screen.
Yep, all good.
Great. Okay, thanks for confirmation. So, what you see here, before I go there, let me first see, because I talked about DevOps on GitHub level, or using GitHub. As you see, we know all GitHub. This is just a repo on GitHub itself. You see, we have the code part. Where's my mouse? Where are you, baby? Yes, we have the code part was here. Like you see, this is the structure of my repo. We have the pull request, which is associated with the code. We have the discussions, which is the communication part, where we can have discussions as team members on the project level. We have actions, which is the part for the CI/CD, or the workflows for CI/CD mechanism. We have projects where we can put our backlog and our issues. And we have, of course, what we are talking about today, the GitHub, or security and quality. Talking about security and quality here is something that we will talk in details in a minute. But before that, this is when it comes to the, GitHub as DevOps platform. That said, let me just now go to the Azure DevOps. As you see now, this is my Azure DevOps as a DevOps platform. This is just one of the dashboards on Azure DevOps, where all the artifacts which are pinned on the dashboard. As you can see here, this is all about the backlog, but you can pin other things as well here in the widgets, like the CI, CD, test cases, and all the stuff you are interested on. Then you can pin all that stuff here in this dashboard. But interesting here is, as we say, Azure DevOps, we have the board, which is for project management, and this board supports a bunch of processes. When I talk about processes here, I'm talking about Scrum, Agile, Semi, Kanban, or maybe your customized process in that sense, right? Then we have the repos. A repo is just where we can store our code, like GitHub in the past, for instance. It is just an open source repo, exactly the same we have here on Azure repo, and this one is based on Git. And then we have all the operations we can, of course, perform on the Git repo, right? Then we have the pipelines. When I'm talking about pipelines here, you see we have the pipelines here for the CI, but we have the CD pipelines here for the release, for instance. And of course, you have other properties there which can be used in order to secure your CI/CD mechanism here. And of course, as I said, we have the test plans, and the test plans is just for a tester test discipline within the projects, so that the code or the features can be tested from idea to production and vice versa. Knowing that the tester is absolutely a must, and it must be part of the team from the start, not at the end when we have to deliver in a month, before we deliver 2 weeks before, then we have to test everything. No, this is just part of the cycle, part of the methodology you are using, Scrum or Agile or whatever. It must be part of the iteration or sprint you are working on. Okay, so this is, I hope that this makes sense. The two different DevOps ecosystems from Microsoft, and with different features. Okay, so that's it. But today, I would like to take you guys into the part of the security and quality nowadays. Nowadays, it is called security and quality. Once we go here, we will see that security and quality, that is just this one. You see on the security and quality part, we have some kind of tools here included. Okay, we have secret scanning, we have code scanning, and we have dependent bot. Those are tools which are included within the service and can be used in order to get your source code as earlier as it could be in the process, scanned for the vulnerabilities before it reach the production. Okay, you see on my GitHub instance, this is those are my settings, and of course we have the code security here, and you see all the features here are enabled from my account, and therefore I can just make use of them from my projects. That said, on the GitHub level, we see this security and quality, and security and quality is already used for that projects. When I go to here, for instance, code scanning, you see those are all the vulnerabilities which are found in the context of this project on my repo for this when it comes to code scanning. And if we go, for instance, deeply into that code, we will see some tools and some how can I say, some leveling of the vulnerabilities which are found, medium, maybe high, maybe low. Okay, this is when it comes to the code scanning. Then we have the secret scanning. Secret scanning, for this one, there are no secrets here, but it could be, for instance, that for some projects, some secrets are exposed in plain text and they will be detected, for instance. I have a good sample for that one on Azure DevOps, right? And then we have the dependent bot. Dependent bot, we see, for instance, we have the malware. If we have malware here detected for this project, it's not stated. But for the vulnerabilities, we have some vulnerabilities here when it comes to the dependent bot. You see, those are also some vulnerabilities which are detected for this project. But for instance, this one, part traversal. You see, and it gives me the information on what's there and what the impact is, and also the recommendation, how I can work around that vulnerability which is found. This is the goodness of this service, to get it enabled on your repos on GitHub level or maybe on Azure DevOps level, so that you can just secure your code as earlier as possible in the process. Okay, so this is the usage of this service, which is GitHub Advanced Security on the GitHub level. But this service is also integrated, as I say, is also integrated on other repos like DevOps repo, for instance. Okay, that said, let me just go to the this one. When I go to this repo, you see this is another project, this is another repo, this is a repo on Azure DevOps, and this is where we can find this feature. On Azure DevOps repo, we have a property which calls Advanced Security, and this Advanced Security is exactly containing what you have seen: secrets, dependencies, and code scanning. But before we go there, how can I enable this service on Azure DevOps repo? That said, on the repo level, I have one of the repos, empty repo containing one file, but that is not the trick here. The trick is how I can enable that service on that repo. Going, of course, to Advanced Security here, you will see, hey, this repo doesn't have the Advanced Security service enabled yet. So now I'm in the process of enabling it. What I have to do here is enable in settings. When I click on this one, it will take me to the repository settings on Azure DevOps, and you will see by default this service is disabled. You see here it is off. Now when I say, hey, I would like to have it on, I will be notified because there is some billing here, right? You will be notified, hey, enable NBM billing for this repo. That means when I say, okay, begin billing, then this service will be enabled on this repo, and from now on, everything I do on this repo, then that service is enabled. Okay, and then I can make use of it, of course, from here, from this repo. I can make use of it on my pipeline. For instance, if I have a pipeline here, I can make use of that service in the pipeline in order to scan the code from that repo and have the vulnerabilities detected and exposed, of course, on the Azure Defender for Cloud. Okay, but this is how we can enable it for this service. But now I will go to the security, Advanced Security on the repo where it is already enabled. You see here what we see here is the secret scanning, dependency bot, and the code scanning. Those three features here are coming from this. Let me check. Are coming from here. Okay, secret scanning, code scanning, and deployment bot. Those are the tools which are integrated within the security service of GitHub Advanced Security, and those ones are absolutely on the GitHub on the Azure DevOps repo enabled. Okay, and every part here has, you see, for instance, this one. This is one of the code scanning vulnerabilities. Is the high one. When I click on that one, it will take me into the details, until the source code itself. You see, this is on this file, controller contact controller.cs on this line 221, so that you can see, hey, it is about this daily thingy, and then this is what it says about it, and this is the code which you have, this is the example you have, and of course the reference where and how we can, of course, work around this issue. Okay, detections. If we have some detections here, you see there are detections found on January 28, for instance. Okay, then this is about this one. Exactly, we can do the same for others as well. This is when it comes to the code scanning. Then we have the secret scanning. Secret scanning, as I said, this is about the secrets which can be exposed plain text, for instance, in a JSON file or a YAML file or whatever, and that will be found by this feature or by this service when it comes to that one. Here you can see, for instance, I have one project where I have struct this API key, for instance, and this API key is exposed in plain text in this project, and the system says, hey, that's not the way to go. That's why it's found here. Then it gives you, of course, some tips how we can work around that one, right? So then okay, or maybe some password or whatever which can be on there. You see a password, you just expose plain text, and then it can be exposed here. Note and please remember these three secret scanning problems which you have found on this project here. You will see them later on the Defender for Cloud exposed there as well. Okay, so then we have the dependencies. There are some dependencies. Microsoft Security Adversary, for instance. When we click on that one, we see that we have some dependency. Upgrade Microsoft built from blah 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 to fix this one. In order to fix this, I have to do some upgrade, and then this is the location where it is. This is the definition, the description. This is the announcement where it is, and then those are some packages which are dependent on, and then of course we and resources which can be used in order to that problem or to that issue. Everything is in place just to get our source code as secure as possible earlier in the process before it hits the production. This is what we care about here. Okay, so now I hope this makes sense how you can make security as a feature on GitHub offer. Of course, on the GitHub level itself, on GitHub repo, and also on the other repo, which is on the Azure DevOps repo, by making use or enabling on the Advanced Security tab, right? And then having, of course, the different vulnerability or different scanning features, secrets, dependency, or scanning. Okay, that's about this. Then the third tool, which I would like to talk about today, as I say, I'm now outside of the Azure DevOps, because here I was on Azure DevOps. You see, here I'm on GitHub, but now I'm on the Azure Cloud itself. Okay, on Azure Cloud, on the portal, we have a service which is called Defender for Cloud. This service, which is Defender for Cloud, is a security service which is enabled on Azure Cloud level in order to detect all the security postures here. Okay, security postures, as you can see, for different resources in my subscription. We have regulatory compliance, for instance. Here we have the workload protections, and we have inventories. Okay, this is in general. Of course, this is part of my subscription, and I can make use of it. Those 4, 5, 3 assets resources which are used, and you have only one subscription here. Okay, but what I would like to talk about here today is security alerts. Security alerts, if there are some or they are enabled, they will be exposed here. Okay, then importantly is this part, not the general part, but the cloud security part, which is this one. And based on this cloud security part, we have security postures. We can just see every part separately. But what is interesting here is DevOps security. What we see here are vulnerabilities that are found, or security findings that are found on different repositories in my systems, or Azure DevOps, or in GitHub, or maybe in both, right? So this service is here to be used. You see, those are all repositories. Those are all projects in my Azure DevOps, right? And also I have some projects in GitHub as well. Yes, I have. Yeah, you see one GitHub project here, Chat Copilot. This is exactly the one we are working on. That one is a kind of secure, okay? And then we have other GitHub as well, Docs, Intelligence Dynamics, and then we have other GitHub as well. You see GitHub, and we have this one. Anyway, what you have to keep in mind here is we have different repositories coming from Azure DevOps, or maybe coming from GitHub, and then they will be exposed here. But how did I got these repositories here? Instantly, we can say that, hey, this service, which is Defender for Cloud, when it comes to the DevOps security part, this is where we are right now. To enable that one, I have this possibility here, add environment. And when I'm talking about environment here, it means this, we have GitHub, we have Azure DevOps, and we have GitLab. Hey, I see something which is common to me. I see that GitHub, to me, GitHub is a DevOps ecosystem. Azure DevOps, absolutely the same. But GitLab is absolutely a DevOps platform as well, from another vendor. So what we see here, the environments, meaning the DevOps platforms which are exposed or are integrated here. So in order to make that available or activated, we just go to Azure DevOps, for instance. Okay, I would like to make another environment, another registration, and then go for that one. The first thing we have to do is give it a name. I will say Azure User Group Demo, for instance. Okay, in the context of today. Then it is the Azure subscription for myself, and then the resource group. I already have some resource groups which are available, but I can also create a new one if I want. Okay, let me just say Azure User Group RG, resource group. Okay, then that one is created. Then of course I have to locate my my subscription. I'm in Amsterdam, so I'm pointed to West Europe. Then I will go here and I will say, hey, wait a minute. You see here, we will go to capabilities. We see select the desired capability, which one. That one is simply, it is okay. I'm okay to go with that one because now I'm gonna use some paid service because it is enabled on it. So I would like to get it. It is all enabled. Go. Please fix it. Then I will say configure. Now I have to be authenticated. Somehow I have to authorize so that the system say, hey, are you Hassan, which are working on? Is the account from you? And if it is, then it will get me into the system and it will enable me to use or to make use of that service. Now the authorization mechanism is done. As you see, it says it is authorized. And from now on, I can enable that connector or that connection in order to scan or in order to, in order to scan or in order to enable this connector for my upcoming or maybe existing as well organizations. What you see here is edit connector account, auto discovery of resources. What do you want to do? All existing and future organizations or only all existing organizations? So do you know what? I plan to do this talk for many times. So let me just say the first one, all existing and future ones. Once I enabled here, it will be enabled for the ones we are coming. Okay, I'm good to go. But once I say that, what does it mean? It means that the permissions, some permissions must be set in that sense, and you have to know about those in order to see, okay, is that what we want from my repository? Suppose my repository contains some, how can I say, some sensitive code or some sensitive information. Yeah, then I have to think twice before I make that choice, right? So from that perspective, you see the permissions I have here. It is all read and write. And then you see identity is only read, work items is read and write, build is read and write, and so on. Those are all the permissions which are intended to the usage of this service. Okay, so once I say review and generate, you see that, okay, this is all I selected, it's all looking good. I will say create. Now what happens now here is this connector is getting created. Once it is created, means that all the organizations in my system on Azure DevOps in that sense, because I'm choosing the Azure DevOps connector, will be included in this scheme. Okay, so that will take some time, but back to the advanced security here. Okay, it is already there. That's good. Now, okay, the connector is created, but the point is, you see, those are all the how can I say, the repositories which are on there. You see DevOps security results, code findings 722, secret findings 10, and we see infrastructure as code findings and dependency findings. It is good and split it up into different areas and different responsibilities from different integrated tools or services which are part of the service itself. Okay, so then now we will see on this project, we see that something is exposed here, and then let me just say what the level is of that vulnerability which is detected. It's still loaded. Please go. Yes, okay, you see this, he says this one is unhealthy. Okay, it is marked as low, which is okay. Low ones, I'm not caring about them. Let me just go back and then go to some high ones. For instance, let me check. Okay, go on this one, for instance. This one must be high, and then we will see that code. Excuse me. We will see that code is come on. Okay, it's also low. Okay, cool. And then anyway, it is about the idea. It's about the idea. What you see here is risk level is low. This is the description. Azure DevOps repository should have secret scanning finding resolved. You see, this is about secret finding here. Secret scanning finding means if I go to the details of that one, I will see that, hey, this is the subscription, the description which is given here. Okay, this is the subscription which is aligned to. This is the change which has been made. This is freshness, 60 minutes, and then is the risk factors, the governance of it, and of course we have some recommendation. You see, some recommendation which can take into account in order to make that one. And doing that, maybe you have to work on some automation here. Maybe you have to create some logic app with some workflow which work through the vulnerability I find, and from there you can find it. Then we have the findings of it, critical. We have one critical finding. You see here the critical finding, which is here, okay, on this state. The state is open. This is the project. This is the file name, the line of the code. Right, the tool name which is using is GitHub security scanning. You see, and the run is that one, and introduced by Dan, and the resource count is 1. Commit SHA is that one, and URL is this. Okay, all the information needed is absolutely there, and you see as well the general information, the ID which are talking about, the severity and the status. This is really, really powerful in order to get the developers helped anyway with the code scanning before that code hits the production. As I say twice already, there is nothing expensive than getting something back from production when it comes to this, while we have the possibilities to work through this before it hits the production. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Okay, so going back to the service itself. Okay, then what we see here is DevOps workflow. or workbooks, for instance. We see the DevOps workbooks. You see what we see here are all those are the organizations, those are the projects, and those are the repositories. Okay, on these repositories, which are split up here, you see the repos, the total, the high, the medium, and the low based on vulnerability level. And you see exposed secrets, for instance. You see exposed secrets. I told you before, guys, be aware that on Azure DevOps here, most web app, we have 3 vulnerabilities, right? 3 vulnerabilities. So let's say these 3 vulnerabilities or secret things are coming from here. Are coming from here. We see 3 secret scannings which are here. This information is exactly the same what is exposed here. If I go to eShop web, I will find the 6 as well. Okay. So that's when it comes to the exposition of the secrets or the vulnerabilities on the project level, on the Azure DevOps level, and also where it is exposed on the Defender for Cloud. Okay, so that said, when I come back here to the workbook, those are workbooks, different workbooks which are there, which are all queries which can be customized and then make a lot of different reporting and everything and all the fancy reports which you can make from there with some status and some information which can be shared, of course, with maybe with security department or whatever, and then that's it. But what's interesting here is what's on there. We see the whole security. We have some overview of exposed secrets, for instance. We have 10. Okay. Then posture management. Posture management, you see, there's a posture management finding by status. We have 276 unhealthy, and we have 226 healthy on 502 total. Okay, we see here the code repos 154 repos, and then we see the empty repos, and we see the service connections. Okay, then we have some secrets. The secrets are exposed as here. As you can see, we have 10 in general, we have seen in the previous tab. We have 10. This one is on the on LBC SQL, and then the other ones are on the different projects. Okay, then we have the code scanning. You see, these are all the account findings by tool. You see, for code scanning, those are the ESLint or CodeQL. ESLint is making use of too much of this one, and CodeQL just 12.7%. Okay, and those are all projects on my organizations in Azure DevOps and in Azure DevOps Initiatives. Okay, then if we are making use of some open source tooling or open source things, then we can have some vulnerabilities there as well. You see, we are open source vulnerabilities by severity. We have some open source here, and you see the high, the medium, and low, which are also exposed based on the projects where it is used and where it is found. Infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is absolutely a very, very nice thing. Talking about infrastructure as code, me as a DevOps engineer, I'm not doing nothing else than that daily because I like the automation, and I'm using a lot of infrastructure as code based on Bicep, Terraform, or whatever in order to get my stuff provisioned automatically. As infra engineer, for instance, I would like the provisioning and all the resources creation and everything to be done by code or automated instead of going to portal and click here and there. No visualizations here. Everything should be done based on the automation. One of the let me check. One of the samples there is one is face code. Where is my face code? Where are you, baby? Yes, my face code is started on the other screen. Okay, yes, here we go. Talking about infrastructure as code. Here we go. I don't know if you can see my screen. Yes, you can. Okay, so what we see here is just a project, which is I call infra deployment, for instance. This is an infrastructure as code project that I'm using for demos, and what you see here is those are all. I have some modules here, and the modules containing different resources which are categorized based on the place and the function where it is used for, right? And then I have some, where is it? I have some mind bicep, which contains all the information which is exposed on there based on the resources which are provisioned. Okay, so this bicep file, hello, this bicep file contains all the information, all the declarations of the sources or the resources which are here. Okay, and then this is absolutely a good infrastructure as code by making use of GitHub Copilot, for instance, as you can see here in an agent mode, because we have the agent here, we have the on agent level. I can just make use of that one, and using this, it is okay. But if you also would like to make use of the Azure Cloud goodness from here, you can just install one of the extensions which is Copilot for Azure, for instance. Once that one is installed on your VS Code, it will give you the possibility to point into the Azure Cloud features as well here, right? And we have other many other extensions which can be used. Azure ESC generator, for instance, is also there. You see, this one is just getting you central hub for generating infrastructure as code, bicep, RM, Terraform, or Plum with format specific validations, for instance. Those are all features which can be used on the infrastructure as code here. So what I would like to do here is I would say add logic dot bicep, for instance. We have seen one of the solutions we can have for getting into vulnerabilities is making use of the logic app, for instance, with some flow, and then using that one in order to resolve my vulnerability. Now, suppose I don't have that one, and then I say, okay, add logic app dot bicep to modules, for instance. Okay, this is not useful thingy, but it is just giving you an idea. What will be done right now is I'm now on the the JSON, my bicep, sorry, and then I would like to create, as you can see here, I would like to create a logic app. Now I see logic app in order to see if that one can be created, and then you see that the Copilot there is already a logic app module. Okay, there is already a right one. Okay, then my bad. I maybe have to give it another name. And okay, I've confirmed the logic app model already exists. But okay, you are absolutely right. Processing, if it is existing, then indeed it is here. You see, he's now on there, and you see this is the logic of that logic app, which is added by the team. Now I can say, okay, keep that one, or maybe reject it, or undo it. It's okay. I see I have logic app bicep, logic app bicep. Now I have two, and I have to see now. Okay, kept both of them, and they have to work on some reverse engineering here in order to, otherwise I will get some discrepancy on the naming. Okay, but here is only just to give you an idea about how can you work through this. Once I get here right now, I will say, hey, I have my bicep file, and I will say, hey, do you know what? Build my bicep file, for instance. Where's my build? It's not that one, not bicep, my JSON. Wait a second. Yes. Okay, publish. Where is my build thingy? Damn. Run, publish, open with, well, yes, ARM template. I can say build ARM template here, and you see the ARM template is built successfully. And now from here, I can say, hey, do you know what? My ARM template is built successfully. Now I can deploy that bicep team, for instance. I can just say, hey, publish here, for instance, or publish or deploy bicep file. Once I do deploy bicep file, then it will be deployed into my my Azure environment, and and it will come somewhere here on my Azure environment itself. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea when we talk about infrastructure as code, and this is the goodness of this service. So that said, in general, I hope it makes sense. I talked about DevOps in general, based on Azure DevOps and based on GitHub. I talked about GitHub Advanced Security, which is GitHub service on GitHub offer, which is can be used on GitHub repo itself, but also on Azure DevOps repo or maybe on GitLab repo, right? Then I talked about the vulnerabilities which can be exposed on Azure Cloud Defender for Cloud Service, as we can see right now, and then you can see all the information based on the repositories of choice on Azure DevOps or GitHub, which contain all the information needed on there. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so back to the slides, and I think I'm on the last slide here. Here we go. Yes, this last slide indeed. I don't know if you have some questions, guys. Then I will be happy to answer them. If not, then I will thank you very much for being here with me today. And if there are questions, always happy to answer them, of course. Thanks so much.
Hassan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love the energy, Hassan. Brilliant.
Yay!
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Nicola.
There's just to close the loop. So there's no questions that have come in across the various channels at the moment, Hassan. I'm sure you're okay. If anybody is watching this, even the recording, and they have some questions, if they hit you up on your socials that you've shared out there, or they can just contact myself or Nick, and we'll get the message over to you as well.
No problem. I'm always happy to help. No problem at all.
Yeah, but great session. A lot of content to cover.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Okay, so Hassan, appreciate it. So let's go to our next speaker. Kieran, did you manage to get your tech issues sorted out? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I think it is.
I will stop sharing.
Nice.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Go, Kieran. Good luck.
Oh, Hassan, I don't know if I can match your energy. Oh my God, it was enormous. It was superb. Yeah, very great session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can tell he's been doing it for a long time.
Yes. Okay, so I can share my screen now, right?
Yep, work away.
Okay, cool. Okay,
perfect.
So today, should I get started? Maybe,
Yeah, over to you. The stage is yours. Okay. We'll drop off, and we'll keep an eye on any questions coming in for you, Kieran.
Sounds good. So thanks everyone for joining in. So I'm Kiran. I'll be walking through some of the how do we calibrate AI readiness for any project which we are trying to build, because in these days AI agents and AI projects are like everywhere, and anyone can do some kind of a code. But how do we utilize the cloud services with what Azure cloud gives, and how do we use AI to make enormous progress in any of the experiments, right? I think before going there, let's talk about some uncomfortable truth. This is the most mature reports which will not lead to these things, as the most of the enterprise AI pilots don't die because of model failure or anything which is related to anything related to what is out there. It is because of organizations don't carry with them the data, what is there already. How do we segregate the data? There is a team misalignment, the risk of compliance and everything. And there are multiple project pilots which are running across the businesses and business units. How do we narrow down all these things? So this is more of a structural problem, as well as how do we make sure we have a proper gated or some kind of a structure in how do we create this kind of projects, where we kind of gauge and put some kind of a maturity score to understand how do we deploy this in a system. So what I'm proposing as part of this framework is some 3 acts, where one is basically the workshop, where we try to co-design and develop, identify all the kind of cross validations across the teams. The second would be stage gates to have explicit recovery paths. Most frameworks tell you, hey, this is not working, we should not go towards this. But what kind of framework can give you the ability to, change a little bit of course and try to unblock and go? So that's what this framework is trying to provide. So the third one would be, which is the most important one, how do we connect all the systems together? Not just to say, oh, I have used this like a checkbox, but to actually connect all these things. Now the thing is, if we solve these things in a separate setting with separate teams and things, it again comes back to how do we uh, disconnected or disjoint things. So how do we make all these 3 acts come together and get the project going, right? So then let's dig into a little bit each acts. So what does a workshop, what does it mean to be having a workshop? The very first thing we should do with any of the projects which we run is this, where you take like typical 30 minutes kickoff, understand what kind of projects we have, what kind of stakeholders we have. Pretty sure anyone who is trying to watch this will one or the other way relate to what kind of role or activity or outputs which they are looking for. So everyone should have that understanding of what kind of role that fits in. And then it goes into like 2 or 4 hour of workshops, typical like customer discovery or project discovery kind of a workshop, where we figure out what is that which we want to do, and also some concrete artifacts which we can come out of it. A maturity scorecard across the pillars. I will talk about the pillars in a minute. So we have identified like 5 different pillars on which what is the marks which we should provide on for each of them. So this workshop now, like I have also tried to show some of the tools which can be used, which are provided by Azure cloud and even Microsoft on a higher level, where some of these like loops or any kind of templates, Microsoft learning paths, these are all some of the tools which already are available in Azure, which can be used for this. So wherever I see there is a relation between whatever Microsoft cloud or Azure cloud or Microsoft provides, I have tried to provide those references here. So in the second stage, here we are trying to divide this act of discipline to 4 phases. Now, what does the discipline mean here? Workshop has finished. There is some kind of a plan we figured out, but and also there is some kind of maturity which we identified. What does it mean? So but each of these how do we understand what kind of discipline and maturity we have to kick in and make things happen? So the most important critical path is recovery path. Any such phase which is going through, like let's say we have discovery going on, foundation, pilot, production, like these are all normal phases which goes in. But let's say if the discovery is going on, based on all the stakeholders and many people who come chime in and try to make things better, we try to lose the control of what we are trying to deliver with the proper timeline in picture. So what the recovery gate provides is the ability to do scope reduction in case of discovery phase, and also similar in every other phase we have a what kind of recovery we should allow there. So in foundation phase we can see that capability build, what kind of capability are we building, should we change what kind of infra we should make it, what kind of governance we should apply, we change it a little bit there. In the case of pilot, we try to see, okay, this is probably not heading, we change the timeline, or we try to incorporate or remove some of the things. And then Production is when we try to integrate with cross teams in many different projects and try to get everything together. Yeah. So the next act is, this is the pillars. This is the maturity scorecard and the pillars of systems which I was talking about. So this is not a list. It's kind of a it's a system which shows you what it means. Now data is fed through processes. AI workflows are only as good as data underneath them. Infrastructure carries both. Without observability and scalable compute, neither data nor process can grow past a single pilot. Governance spans all four. It's not a phase at the end, it's an attribute of every pillar. And importantly, the culture underpins everything. Without leadership commitment and AI literacy, the technical work has no organizational footing to stand on. Now, why does this matter? Because pilot sprawl, the pattern from what we saw earlier, happens because each pilot tries to solve one pillar in its own isolation. Someone needs to fix the data plumbing, someone needs to do the model deployment, someone needs to do the governance, and we need to connect it in some kind of a scorecard or some kind of metrics. The blueprint here enforces us to see the whole chart, and the act 3 tries to give that maturity model on how to avoid any pilot sprawls. So let's now zoom into each of the pillar and try to understand what each each of the pillar here means. In this case, data preparedness. If this pillar is wrong, nothing in the majority works, right? There's four dimensions in this data preparedness. This is completeness, accuracy, lineage, and accessibility, where completeness is basically it gives the actual data, how complete it is. The accuracy is the reliability and the source from where we are trying to get the data from. The lineage is basically how it was transformed, if there was any transformation applied, and any of those sorts which come in. And and the accessibility is basically what kind of people and systems who actually have access to these data, and what kind of analysis can be run on top of it, or who accesses this data when we are using it, right? So those are the four uh, uh, yeah, the four dimensions here. So the most of the organizations are mature, especially in data, especially after the AI world. I think everyone understands the importance of data, but how do we assess and make sure the data quality is fine? So that is where the maturity ladder is given here, where we can kind of provide a marking system where we say, okay, data preparedness, if it is siloed sources, if it is manual quality checks, limited governance, we give 1 to 2. If it is centralized repositories, we give 3. And if it is like enterprise platform, real-time quality data and comprehensive governance with a proper collected data, then we give it a 4 and 5. So I have given some of the there was one at the last of this session. There are like 4 use cases which I have figured from some of the journal publications. One of the company is manufacturing industry, and in that the stage 5, the data preparedness for it was so well documented that it really changed the way or it impacted its success in AI so well that it is pretty much documented. I'll share the citations and sources at the end of the this one, but I'm just trying to give heads up on what kind of metric and numbers can help here. So the next one is process adaptability. Now, this is about answering one question: does this workflow actually benefit from AI? Because not every process or anything which is AI-fied is every time shiny, right? So the framework gives 3 traits to evaluate before we commit. The first one are the decision points repetitive. AI is good at repetition, right? but bad at one of judgments. So the second one is, are the outcomes measurable? If you can't measure success, you can't tell if the AI is helping you or not. uh, so and then the third one is, are the data flow clear? If the input to the decision are tribal knowledge or scattered across people's heads, the AI has nothing to learn from, right? So this strategic one-off and tribal knowledge process, those are not the AI candidates. Those are actually human judgments. Now, what does this pillar look like at the top? A global finance institution, which was another use case, we'll see that on this, we'll see runs a central intake process from more than 1,000 KPI graded proposals. Hundreds of AI use cases reach production through this one process. Every proposal is measurable. Every proposal has clear data flow, and it goes through the same discipline gates. That's the process at scale, and it's exactly how enterprise lands an AI project without a pilot sprawl, right? So now let's go into the pillar three, which is infrastructure scalability. This is a substrate that lets a pilot become production without being completely rebuilt. There are four dimensions here. Flexible compute, you can scale up and down based on the demand. Scalable storage, you can handle the data volume based on what your AI is generating. Now, integration patterns, uh, can your AI talk to the systems it needs to talk to? So that kind of integration, all the integrations can be evaluated here. And observability, and this one is good, right? Can you actually tell in production whether your AI is working or not? Without observability, you have no idea whether a model is silently degrading, hallucinating, all those terms, right? Now, what does this pillar look like at the top? Now, as you can see in one of the examples, um, it runs petabyte scale data platform powering hundreds of AI projects. And the nuance is this: they sit at a stage 4 on infrastructure deliberately, while every other pillar is actually given the marks of 5. Even leaders don't have max out infrastructure because of the scale with which it can perform. They let the workload pull infra forward. The lesson is that infrastructure has to keep pace with rest of the system, but it doesn't have to lead overall. It's also very important to notice that it's not a later problem. It is and should be part of the journey as we take the AI forward. So let's talk about governance and ethics. This has probably like four standards. Explainability, you can explain why AI made a decision what it made. Bias detection, are you actively monitoring for demographic or systematic biases which are getting introduced in the system? Regulatory compliance, are we tracking what regulations apply and provide proving we meet them? Risk assessment, do you have a structured way to evaluate a risk of each AI use case before deployment? Now, critical framing point, the framework stance is the governance is embedded across the entire life cycle, not bloated, at the end of the release and say that, okay, governance is done, right? So it is an attribute of how you build, not how we ship. Now, how does it look like? Like, again, taking this example of one of the healthcare, governance is based on the data what is provided there. It is marked as 5 for this specific use case, which is healthcare based, where every other mark is also at the top notch, but because it is healthcare, we need to make sure that governance is top notch and it is up to date in all of this. By also addressing this, you can see that even others also gets the highest score around this. So cultural enablement, like this is the big piece where how does it impact users and at the enterprise scale? If there is so nobody wants to invest until technical work has stalled, but by then it's too late, right? So what kind of dimensions are we looking at here? Therefore, um, so AI literacy, does your workforce understand what AI can or cannot do? Cross functional champions, do you have people in cross technical roles who can articulate AI value to their peers? Shared ownership, do business team feel ownership of AI outcomes, or do they think it's their project, or it's someone else's project? And also the leadership commitment, does our leadership, senior leadership actually use AI in their workflows? How do they sponsor, how do they make people use such things and all those things? Now, what does it mean? For example, one of the finance services example, which we will look later, there the literacy was exactly at in place, and leadership was actually trying to use them all across. uh, not just to mention that they were sponsoring them at a high rate. And there is also some truth to be learned here. A pilot can pass every technical gate which has been described so far in previous pillars, but it can still fail to land in the field if the cultural enablement is not there. That's where the actual technology work. That's where people adapt and make any bet related to AI adoption go well. So now, if we see all these in one picture, we can see that we can zoom out and see here is one single slide which consolidates all these five pillars, and also the different products and services which Microsoft Azure provides, which can fall into and be utilized by all the teams. So having one Azure resource available for such team for running all this deployment can be a massive improvement in one go. So now, how do we make this like now if we zoom out and if we try to just see five pillars become these three planes on how we can adopt and make this happen, right? Now the bottom plane is basically data, where you really want a clear outcome based data which is there. If data is wrong, you can prove nothing, or it will not be useful. And you can see what kind of services from Azure we are using here, right? The whole stack is broken down here. So now if we see yeah, so the fabric of the one lake, sorry, yeah. So with the one lake fabric, what we see, and the Power BI sits on top of it, and Microsoft Purview catalogs, traces, lineages, every data set, every transformation, every customer, everything is traced through that. So this is related to the data. Now what is about the AI platform plane? This is a middle one. This is where the logic actually lives. The center of the plane is AI Foundry, and this is where genuinely a meaningful change in how Azure organizes AI services comes in handy. So Foundry is single place which has all the model catalog, projects, evaluations, any of the agent services, just one console which has everything. The workflow drops in directions, all those are also there. If you are using foundational model and need a fine tuning, you can actually use that. There is also Azure ML here which can be used for any ML related training, and also Azure AI search for any vector store and also retrieve augmented generation, right? So if you are using some kind of custom inference at scale, you can use AKS or container apps. If you are building agentic flows, again, multi-step AI tools are also there. Um, so yeah, in this slide, you can see there are some of the names which we discussed here. So the third plane is governance, like what we discussed. Most of the things are covered here, but how do we cover it from the service point of view is what we are trying to establish as part of this slide. So the statement becomes very literal. Every workload, both planes below answer up, right? So Microsoft Entra controls who can use what across whole stack. Microsoft Defender for cloud enforces security postures, content safety, and Foundry evaluations all gates the model can what model actually can do at runtime, not at the code review, right? So these are some of the things which the services we can go over. Now this is one empirical evaluation which I ran based on some of the open source open source data sets what we have. um, so the experiment one is basically data preparedness. There is a open source data called graph benchmark. So when a structured reasoning data set, we systematically degrade its data quality across 11 levels, from pristine all the way to corrupted. At each level we measure task accuracy. So when we measured the task accuracy, it came out to be the number which is 0.812 with a p-value of this, which is a strong statistical significant. We also found the critical threshold somewhere in 6 to 7 readiness band. That's the data preparedness as one pillar. We figure out how do we calibrate the data preparedness is there. In experiment 2, now this is more annotated human labeled, so it can be a genuine one. This is a customer service dialogues, conversations which is here, which are real ground truth annotations, which means not a simulated or data generated one. So this one we classified dialogues as structured, semi-structured, and ad hoc, and how closely it adheres to the defined process. Semi-structured one on entire on entity resolution with the numbers what we have here. This some kind of a phase where we try to show how process adaptability can actually get the scores upper. And finally we have government gates. So there is like some simulated scores benchmarks we ran and try to experiment on top of it to figure out what kind of strict gates if we introduce in the process, how the numbers will change. And because this is simulated outputs, so this is one of the simulated output which we got, which is 90% f1. So now, not just going based on some experiments and heuristics, right? These are actually um, four use cases which did not use the AI readiness blueprint. But when I took these use cases and applied the AI readiness blueprint on top of these use cases and try to, based on the maturity scores, if I start rating the numbers, and these are one of the leading journals publishing uh, these stories, right? When I mapped, it became so clear that the maturity score what this AI readiness blueprint provides, if it is applied to any of the success AI projects, it does look something like this. So it's a clear indication to say that having such a blueprint and running it through any of the AI projects will actually lead to a success for any of the AI projects. So I can share. So some of the journal names are here. I've anonymized the actual company names which are part of the industry. But yeah, in if you go over the journals which is here, probably you'll be able to figure out on these stories. So yeah, so basically, so for the demo perspective, I created a small app where now because these are all like AI driven small projects, I try to use the CLI directly from here. So I created a small demo project from here where you run all these scripts, create the shell scripts. And I'm actually using Azure CLI. So what the first one does is, here it takes whatever experiments we were talking about earlier. Those experiments were all one of the experiment was done as a demo for this project, right? So the first pillar one, for the data, how do we segregate it? So we have containers, and we have three different containers, where one is called bronze, which is basically correct and clean graph data. And we intentionally made the degraded data for silver to do some testing, and then gold, which actually is when the total project runs, the responses come and sit here. So as you can see, I have already run this project just before this demo, and you can see some data is sitting there already. So the pillar 2 is basically process. So if we go to this one, you can see I have tried to run all these experiments again and again multiple times, and you can see all the previous successes show up there, logical apps. And when we see the container runs here, so you can see the container is still running, kind of this experiment is still running, because you can see the stop and start here. And you can also see the real-time observability on what is going on is also, we can see, like, the container is actually still running. And finally, if we once the data output comes, we can actually see a result something like this, which will happen if I run a curl command like this, basically to point to this particular container which is running on this host. You can actually see the responses come back, and these responses go and sit exactly here, as we can see. And then finally, what we can utilize is, again, use the Copilot and try to understand what these results mean, and try to give the answer via Copilot like this, where it can actually express what it means to any other persona as needed. So this is a small demo on how we can use just blindly Azure CLI by providing full access, and try to create an end-to-end demo, so that quickly anything can be proven as simple as possible. So that's possibly the that's my demo and the presentation. Any questions, please?
No questions have come in, Kieran. I've been looking at our studio questions and YouTube and LinkedIn, so nothing's come in there. But really good session, I think.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
Exactly. Similar to what we said to Hassan earlier, Kieran, if any questions do come in from folks watching the recording, are you okay if they reach out to you on socials, or we can pass it over to you as well?
Yeah, I've shared my details, so for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question, Karen. Are you actively using this blueprint at the moment on at your workplace or in production?
So this is one of the papers which we published. So I'm from the ML and like kind of research team, right? So we try to apply this on an on and off basis. So not in a large scale, but we are applying it within our team and try to see if it is improving, and try to giving signals on it. But the paper is published, yes.
Okay, and where can folks get the paper from? Is it through the QR code that you sent?
Yeah, so the QR code is for my profile. I think it is about to be published in a journal. It's probably still in review state, so probably I can add it as a comment in this recording after it gets published.
Okay, no worries. That's great. Just in case folks want to read that published report.
Yeah.
In the blueprint. Interesting. Let's ask Hassan. Do you've got any question? Any question, Hassan?
Sorry?
For Karen? Any question for Karen?
No. It's absolutely good. Nice session. Thanks so much, Kiran. Really understood. we are one of the ServiceNow users as well as customers. So
Yeah,
Oh,
same as well. Yeah, active service now.
which is good.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so if no one ain't got any question, thanks for joining, Hassan and
welcome, guys.
Karen. It was amazing, like session
you.
for both of them. Yeah. So
Thanks,
I hope
guys.
everyone learned about AI Blueprint and Defender for Cloud. And till see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Cheers.
day. Bye. See you.